I'm Vanessa Louise. Welcome to Choose You, Choose Bliss, where we believe in one goal, one purpose, love. Through shared experiences, we aim to enlighten, enrich, and enroll you in actively applying the tools and techniques to enable and continue healing for your whole self. Now is the time to take back our power, reconnect with our true selves, each other, including the world around us, and live life with confidence, purpose, and joy. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing you. What if there is never anything missing or lacking? Are you being called to connect deeper into the depths of your own inner wisdom? My guest today shares her journey from humble beginnings, supporting victims of domestic abuse, overcoming 7 cardiac arrests where she had a near-death experience and chose to come back. Now, with a newly opened heart, she guides others through their own healing and claims the return is necessary and that sacred leadership is the way forward. If you are being called to understand your purpose and unleash your potential, we're confident you will feel at home with this podcast. As ever, it's an absolute blessing to be here sharing space with you all. And today we're talking about how to answer a calling to our deeper inner wisdom. And my guest today is the beautiful Julie. So let's delve straight in. And good afternoon, Julie. How are you today, my lovely?
I'm very well. Good afternoon, Vanessa. It's lovely to be here and just have this space to share. So thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I'm smiling because you have such a bright face and you look like an absolute glowing image with your beautiful red colouring in your hair and your rosy glow about you. We only met recently through a dear friend and we had a conversation, and after speaking I asked you if you would do me the honour of coming and sharing your story on our podcast, and I'm so glad to be here and, as you say, sharing space with you today, so thank you. I'm going to start by asking you the question that I normally save until the end, but I think after our conversation I think this is a beautiful segue for you to be able to share your story. So what is your greatest learning in life, or the statement that defines what your life has taught you?
Yeah, when I reflected on this question, and there has been such a depth in me, Vanessa, all my life of not being enough. Sometimes I've been aware of it, sometimes I've been unconscious of it, to different levels and different degrees, whether I'm not enough in my personality, or I'm not enough in what I've achieved, or my car's not of a new enough registration, whatever it is. It could be many things and has been many things. And I think when I really began to search for the potential and the purpose in me, that came up. And so whatever I did, wherever I went, whatever good work I did, and that feeling of kind of, well, maybe I should be further on, or maybe I ought to be more successful, I think it wasn't until life began to change and loss came in, or loss of a parent and family growing up, that actually I realised I've always had it all, and it's always been there. I never saw it. I never felt it. I never allowed myself to experience it because of that core emotion. It just blocked my senses and my sight and my spirituality, really, which is, isn't it, that, in whatever word we want to use it, it's love.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, because that's the terminology I use in my work, is love. And we've kind of said that we're going to talk about today is how do we answer that calling to that deeper inner voice, that deeper inner wisdom. And fascinating that your lesson that you've learned is that you always have it in every moment, whether you don't see it or feel it, but it's always there and there is nothing missing and nothing lacking. And that love, that energy that you speak about, that love was blocked by emotions from your human experiences, not your spiritual self that you are.
Yes.
And I mean, gosh, the core belief of not being enough, I think resonates with so many of us. But you mentioned two words which I love, and that's potential and purpose. Because we are here with great potential living inside of us for a great purpose.
Absolutely.
And you began your life doing wonderful work in the world, didn't you? Just share a little bit about your work prior to what you do now.
Yes, absolutely. So for many years, for over 15 years, I was dedicated to helping women and children that had gone through domestic abuse, that needed to get out of, unsafe situations, and then extended that out actually to, work with men that had gone through similar experiences, men that had perpetrated and was on a rehabilitation program. So I worked very closely with the police and the probation service throughout all those years with regards to safeguarding and inputting in policy. But the big change for me happened in 2000, and that, kind of just took my life in another direction.
Yeah.
And I'm powerless to that.
Well, that's it, isn't it? When you're living a life that you choose as a human being, then it can feel purposeful, it can feel fulfilling, but it's not always true. But equally, I just wrote here, you had a real call to serve if you were working with domestic abuse, children, men and women, but those people who had been abused, but also the people that were the perpetrators that wanted to walk a different path. So you've had a real call to serve and stepped into that in your early career prior to 2000.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that passion came from my life experiences. It came through experiencing that in my marriage and a marriage breakdown, and actually going through that experiences, understanding the loopholes in the law, and life is our teacher, isn't it? And they say with wisdom, we have to earn it. We can't necessarily learn it. And I do believe that for me has been true all the way through.
So that was your own experience as well, was it, with the
Yes,
domestic abuse?
It was, yes.
And doesn't that then make you such a beautiful, authentic, safe, loving space to be for other people who've been through it? So you haven't just read it in a textbook. You haven't just thought, oh, I'm going to go into this industry. It was a lived experience for you that you were able to bring the benefit of your lived experience. Because experience isn't just something that happens to us, is it? It's what we do with what happens to us. So you were really experienced in that to be able to support others, because oh my gosh, it's an awful place to be. I've done similar work with domestic abuse charities. You've got to be a pretty solid, coherent person to be able to hold space for some people and what they go through.
Yes, you have. And I think, for me, purpose and the potentiality that we hold has always come with passion. After those experiences, I felt the calling. It wasn't just a job or a career. It wasn't a salary. It came from my soul. And there's a difference in that I think.
Oh, definitely, because it's that deeper inner wisdom, which we will get to later, is the work that you do now, and but that's constantly seeking expression, but it's constantly communicating with us, isn't it? And I suppose that the work that you began doing led you to freeing that potential in others.
Yes,
totally. If they have lived through unlovely experiences.
Yes.
So carrying on with you feeling your calling, talk to us what happened in 2000.
In 2000, I had what I thought was an emotional breakdown. Okay. I kind of moved into middle management within an organization, but there was lots of conflict. And that's not something that I cope with very well. And I think the gift, I'm going to say it was a gift because I think I put every emotion and every experience into a massive bin and the lid came off. And all of a
Nice.
sudden, I had to face what I denied. I had to face and feel what I'd never felt. And again, I was powerless. I didn't have any control over this, or the control that I'd asserted was taken out my hands. So through that conflict, I had what I felt was a little bit of a breakdown, but it was a spiritual breakthrough. And I went for some healing. I booked myself a healing session. And within that space, my life changed. Within 60 minutes or less than 60 minutes, my life changed.
So speak to us a little bit about that, because I know in the work that I love and do, a lot of the things I get asked often is it can't happen that quickly. So it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? Because so I've got my thoughts on that, but just share if you could, because that's a really quick turnaround, isn't it?
Huge turnaround. It's mind-blowing and life-changing. And I understand what you were saying about the quickness of it. As I work with spiritual connection and development, and sometimes we do have to have patience. And for me, that's in God's hands, Great Spirit's hands, whatever it is for anybody. It's not necessarily within our control. But for me, I went in what I would say what's ordinary? Quote. In my state then, I'd say I'm just an ordinary person that's having a meltdown. But I came out with such spiritual awareness. I felt touched by a higher power. I felt connected to an angelic realm. I felt that I was taken to the light and there was deep healing there. I had sensory responses that I'd not had before. I had a knowing that was not there before. And at that point, I actually didn't want that. I thought, I'm suffering from mental illness and maybe there's a little bit of schizophrenia in here. And the healer touched my hand and she was crying and I was crying. And she said, there's spiritual gifts. You're having a spiritual awakening. And I wanted to say, well, I don't want it. I just want to go back to work. I just want to be emotionally healthy. And then she went on to say, I think there is healing gifts here, or maybe prophecy gifts and prediction and psychic abilities. And all of it was like, I'm not sure I want it.
Well, that's interesting that you should say, I'm not sure I want it, because I know that was part of my experience too.
Yes.
The reason I asked you to express more about the quickness of it is because I personally believe, I think there is the quickness of it, but also because we're human, that's where the patience has to come in.
Absolutely.
But the relief is instant, isn't it?
Yes, it's instant. Yes.
And that is because it's constantly within us. Just like you said at the top of this podcast, your learning has been, it's there all the time.
All the time.
We've got it all.
Yes, all the time. Yeah.
But and I also loved what you said about that you put it in a massive bin. You'd been putting all this in a massive bin and the lid came off. You had to feel where you didn't want to feel. You had to. It's almost like you were, sounds like, if I'm interpreting this right, felt like it's like a volcano that had erupted. You were forced to face it.
I was forced to face it. Yes, absolutely.
And is that then that deeper inner wisdom, that God energy, that infinite intelligence, whatever it is people want to call it, grace, Fred, it doesn't really matter. But there is that something that's living inside of us that had got to the point where it's gone, if you're not going to answer me, I'm going to make you become so much more aware, like an eruption.
Absolutely, totally. And it did. And it was a beautiful experience. I have never felt love like it. I have never, ever felt anything like that in that less than 60 minutes. It was phenomenal. It absolutely emotionally wiped me out. I was literally on the floor. But that was the impact of love. It
Mm.
wasn't pain. It was being impacted by something so beautiful.
Yeah. It's almost like revealing the truth, isn't it?
Yes, it is a revelation. It so
Yeah.
is. And it just highlighted where I'd been and where I was and what I'd not experienced and what I'd not let in, and just how much trauma and abuse was in me, and what my familiarity was. Do you know, it was the
Yeah.
polar opposite to what I'd ever received.
Love that. I absolutely love that, because I think for the people listening, it's going to touch people or speak to people in different ways. So
Yes,
some people might be able to relate to your particular situation. Some people might relate to the fact that they felt they've had a bit of a breakdown, stroke breakthrough. And the sad thing is, and this is why I love the work that you do, because it highlights, and again, you've used that word, I love that. It highlights the fact that this is already within us, and that you are there to help people learn how to work with
yes,
that potential, for want of a
yes,
better expression, within them for a greater
absolutely.
purpose.
Yes.
But, and I love where you said, I don't want this. So many people say, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there.
Yeah,
Because is it fair to say that it's because it's so far away from what you'd experienced before?
totally. It's fair to say it
And
was
that's that
unbelievable.
polarity that you speak about.
Yeah, like how can we be frightened of love? But honestly, I think I always have been. And
Mm,
to some extent, I still am. It's a journey, right? You know,
mm.
I don't think that there is any there, but I find that fascinating.
Yeah,
Mm.
so do I. And I love that word fascinating, because I think for me, like you, when I had my experience, it wasn't that I was frightened of love. I didn't know that that's what it was just then. You sort of, you become
Yeah.
aware of the fact that that's what it is. I think what I was more frightened of, and I wonder if this is true for you, and I'd love you to speak more to that from your experience, is I was more frightened of the unlimited, unconditional feeling that I was experiencing, because I was so used to limited and conditional. And I was like, what do I do with this, whatever you want to call it, because it's formless.
Yes.
So, so you can't really label it. What do I do with it? Like, I'm completely out of my comfort zone with this, because I
Yeah.
can't control this. It's like a tsunami, right? It's
It is.
got you.
Yes.
How did you manage, inverted commas, yourself? How did you cope? How did you navigate that time in your life? Because you were taken from one polar end of the stick to the other end of the stick. That must have really shaken you up. Like, where were you in your life? How did you navigate that?
I think I was navigated
Okay, nice.
by by a loving presence. Do you know
Mm,
the synchronicity, the divinity of it? It flooded in, like absolutely just one door opened, another opened. It was almost like I was nurtured, I was nourished, and a divine loving presence navigated me. It had got my hand. It
love that.
held me. It held me through a sequence of events where I was informed of what was going to happen. I was told I was going to be okay, you know, and
Wow.
this was in conflict where I could have lost my job. I'd just taken on a mortgage. I'd got two small boys. I was on my own. So to be given such reassurance that I could walk through this situation, being held by the divine, is phenomenal. So that me having to navigate it and solve it and sort it was taken. And so I think I've learned to surrender. That
Mm,
was the first teaching, really. It's we are presenting you with this to show you you are
yeah.
being divinely guided
Do
and
you know?
loved through this process.
Oh my gosh, I love that, because it's almost like you're taking the words out of they're popping into my mind and you say them. It's that surrender, because
Mm.
I know, because if it's in me, it's in you, it's in everyone. I know that, because we're all the same,
Yeah,
right? We just
yeah,
look different.
absolutely.
We're in
Yeah,
separated bodies, but
yeah,
we're all the same. I get everything you're speaking about. I've had a similar experience myself, but I also know that if people haven't had that experience, I also know it will speak to them, because that's the truth that's trying to come out, trying to express itself to guide us, right? And we
Yeah.
keep putting it in the bin, as you say, and putting the lid on,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely we do. Yeah.
So when you say given reassurance, now you have a gift to be able to experience the divine. People call that clairvoyant,
Yeah.
clairsentient, right?
Yeah.
And do you believe that everybody has this ability on some level?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I'm
Yes.
so glad you said that, because I do too. I
Yeah.
think it's, do we have to be willing to allow it to guide us?
I
Will it?
guess yes, we do have to be willing, but I think it's a return to what we've been separated from. It's
Yeah,
a return to that consciousness, a return to the light, a return to love,
yeah,
like you say, a return to a power that is greater than our humanness, whatever name we want to put on it, whatever faith or religion. I think it is coming together. For me, it's coming together as one. Um,
definitely. And I love the word you use, return.
yes, return. It's And so, yeah, I think we all are. And I think we have more than five senses.
Mm,
That's just the basic. And we don't always use those because that's through the separation from our spirit and the infinite spirit. We've blocked that,
yes,
or it's been taken from us within a world that doesn't believe in it, isn't necessarily open, how
yeah.
we're socialized, educated,
And
all
also
of it.
people. If we live with
Mm,
people who don't believe in it or aren't
mm.
willing and open
Yeah.
to it, exploring this
Absolutely. Yeah.
divine energy within us, that deeper wisdom, because I think
Yes.
deeper wisdom for general society is something that I think most of us can relate to.
Yes.
Um, you mentioned the word surrender. That's a big part of this work.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And I remember speaking to somebody very prolific a few years ago. I was blessed to be in her presence, like a world leader.
Wow.
And when we were talking about surrender, she said, "Oh gosh, no," and she was shaking her head. And I thought to myself, and this is just me being in my story, right? But
Yeah.
back then, I was like, little old me. Didn't feel courageous enough in the beginning to say, I don't believe that that's what surrender is, because she said surrender is just giving up. And then I actually had this boom, boom in my chest, which I know is God's way of saying to me, speak up. So I
Yeah.
listened to that, because it doesn't do it all the time, but it does when it wants me to say something. And I said, I believe surrender is not giving up. I think it's giving over to something greater than me, my physical being.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and she said, that's fascinating. I've never thought of it like that. And I thought, gosh, I'm glad AI spoke up, but also it made me realize that there is a real courage to surrender. Why
Hmm.
do you think people struggle with surrendering to something greater, to being guided, like you say, to being reassured by that truth, that divine, deeper wisdom?
Yeah. That's
Gosh.
that. It's been the fear in me. And when I see it in some people that I work with and throughout the years, it is that fear, the fear of not being in control,
Mm,
um, you know, the fear of the what if, the fear of nothing being there, and that safety and security comes from an illusion.
mm,
Um, and yet
gosh.
really there's no certainty in that. And is there any safety in it, or we've learned to be comfortable and familiar in the insecurity,
Mm,
in the lack of love. So actually handing over, it's like, no, I'm not safe to do that. I'm too frightened. It
mm,
questions our belief and our faith
mm,
and our trust. And
mm,
we have to be really, really strong. you know?
Oh, very much so. And
Yeah,
there's strong and courageous, I think for me are
yes,
different. And
yeah.
I know we spoke about A Course in Miracles last time we chatted, but there was a quote from A Course in Miracles that really got my attention back in 2017. And it said, you believe in the insanity because you created it, but you do not believe in love because you did not. And if I swapped a couple of words around that help me understand that better, I believe the story, my story, because I created that, but I do not believe in who I truly am because I didn't create that. Is that what fear is for people? Because they don't fully appreciate who they truly are. They don't we remain so much more focused on the outside rather than giving ourselves any attention and time to truly appreciate who we are at the core.
Absolutely. Yeah, and feel who we are and
Mm,
appreciate life in its simplest form.
mm.
So that handing over is kind of it's alien to us, isn't it, really?
I love
Because
that word, alien. I use that.
alien.
It
We're
is
and
alien.
everything we have had, maybe from even before the age of 5 is structured, it's in a box, it's
Mm,
institutionalized.
mm.
And then how can we come from that to hand over to something that's maybe not seen, not known, not felt, maybe not acknowledged in different parts of our lives, or if it is, it's quite controlled in a certain way, in a certain being.
Yeah,
So we're actually scraping back layers and layers of conditioning here, aren't we? Layers.
yeah,
We've lost
very
our
much.
connection to the earth and all
Mm,
things natural, you
mm.
know. So
Amazing.
we
It's the
can't be
familiar.
bothered. It is the familiar,
It's
totally
it's
familiar.
that familiar
Mm,
that you talk
yeah,
about. We're so used to the familiar that we
yeah,
now believe that that's true
yes,
rather than somehow tapping into that courageous part that does, I believe, lives within us that is unfamiliar. It's not untrue, it's just unfamiliar. You've got
yeah.
loads of orbs, by the way, flying around you on this screen. You are
You,
such a beautiful light being. Dare I say that?
you, yes, please do.
You just lovely. It's just
That.
distracted me for a moment there. But so that's a beautiful experience that happened for 2000, and you started doing the work that you do now in 2007. So you left corporate, didn't you,
I
and went
did.
self-employed.
Yes, I did.
Gosh,
Yeah, I
really
just
followed that calling.
I did, yes. And again, it called me, and I knew that I'd kind of took that work and made as much of a difference I could. And then
Mm,
I had to accept the differences that maybe I was powerless to make.
mm.
And I knew there was another path calling, and yeah,
Wow.
so I followed that. And that has been, a lot of development. There has been moments of feast and famine, but throughout it all, I know now, looking back, that I've been held, loved, provided for, and protected, even if my mind and my body, I wouldn't let it feel that.
Mm.
So I can be shaking in fear and anxiety, but the truth of it is that's not real. I can see that in hindsight. Mm.
I love that. And because you've experienced that, that's now the work that you do is guide people
Yes.
through that process themselves.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I love that what you said there about feast and famine because I think that speaks to what so many people are experiencing right now.
Mm,
They
mm.
have such highs and then they drop to such lows.
Yes,
My personal experience is that I believe my work is about helping people navigate.
yes.
It's just a little bit like um your sugar is peaked if you have,
Mm,
I don't know, a Mars bar or something, and it drops. That's
hmm
what the
hmm
nutritionists tell us. It's almost the
hmm
same with our energy and our experiences in life. We can have these real highs and these real lows. And I think people struggle with that rather than
Absolutely.
the actual experience.
Yes.
So it's
Yeah.
helping them find that place within them. So that then led you, didn't it, to working with individuals and groups and leaders and businesses doing
It
what
did.
you're doing, helping them
Yeah.
find that deeper place within them.
Absolutely. And I think that so I'd say from 2007 to around 2012, 13. I was doing healing and some readings and meditation, and I opened up a little shop and started selling crystals and oils, and that was hard. It was hard to make a living. It was hard to keep going. And then the voice came to me, and it was clear, to really truly make a difference, you do have to go into that potential, go into it, go deeper into it, and claim your destiny. So I knew that there was more. So I kind of blended it within the coaching work and, the philosophy of Louise Hay, which I'd trained in, and just let that intuition come through more, the channel open up more. And again, be guided. I tried not to kind of go into the planning or the mind or the analytics of it all, but actually connect into my spirit and my soul and listen to my gut. As scary as it was, I knew that's what I had to follow.
And it's scary because it's different, not because it's scary, I think, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
I'm the same as you.
because it's different. It's scary because I was a little bit wobbly with it. I was scary because did I want to believe that I am being divinely guided and that I'm protected and that I'm loved? It's unfamiliar to have that level of support. I'm not used to it. Dare I receive it? What if it's not real? There was a lot of inner thoughts in my messy mind going on at the
I
same
love that
time.
messy mind. Yeah, which is true. And that's going to be the distraction a lot of the
It
time.
is a distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you say, it's keeping opening up that channel. I've got a saying that it's never done. There's nowhere to get to and it's never
No,
done.
it's not.
And that the bit you'd experienced it back in 2000 where you'd kind of fallen apart, if you like, and had
Yeah.
your breakthrough. So you knew it was possible. And I think the danger is as human beings, we're like, what's the next new way? There isn't a new way. It's always the same way. It's just to keep leaning back into
Yes.
yourself, your deeper wisdom. Keep practicing opening yourself up, relaxing into it, and listening and following that guidance. So you've done it before. It was just a question of doing it again, but
Doing it
just on a
again
different level.
on a bigger scale. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then 2018 hit.
Yes, it did.
Tell us why that was life changing.
Oh, it was totally life changing. But I just want to just quickly say the 2012 to 2018, so much had happened. So I lost both my parents. I have two sons and they'd kind of grown up, gone through university or left home. So I went from having an extended family that was just 10 doors down where we all nipped up and down every day,
Yeah.
to not having any of that. So the grief was profound. At the same time, I had this, I'm not enough. I need to build a bigger business. I'm not successful enough. I haven't got the right amount of money for my age. So there was a lot of that happening at the same time. I think I tried to market my business and got caught up in some of the dangers that are out there on social media that's very connected to the ego or can be connected to the ego that annihilated the beauty that was in my spirit. So there was so much going on. And I found myself shrouded in grief, shrouded in it.
Wow.
And I'll never ever forget I think it was a Friday, the 8th of June, 2018. And my friend came round on the Friday night. We lit candles and we connected in and we did some healing on each other. And my body shook. It just shook. And I said to her, I prayed for this grief and deep sorrow. I've carried it all my life. Fear and anxiety have followed me. And there is an inner feeling of sadness. So I can be positive, I can manifest, I can get through things. But if I had to go into my core, I've walked with that sadness and grief and sorrow and anxiety and fear and almost just adopted it as part of what is. But this particular night, I just thought, oh, I don't know if I want to keep or if I can keep living this way. So I prayed for that. And in my meditation, I felt a strong presence of my grandmother. Now, she was a very religious person in her own way, because she'd go to a spiritualist church and she'd be open to the mediumship, And then she'd go to church and she'd repeat a psalms and a prayer. And so she was a mixture, which, that was strength in her character. But she always used to quote the 23rd Psalm, about even if I walk through the valley of death, thou shalt be with me. He layeth my table before me. And she gave me that in the meditation. So I said to my friend, my grandmother's came through. She's given me the 23rd Psalm. I'm going to Google it and look it up. So we did. And I said, what do you think it means? And she said, I just think it means whatever you go through, you will be guided and you'll come out fine.
Mm.
I went to bed. Within 2 hours, I started to be violently poorly. I thought I got a sickness bug. It was a hot summer's day. I thought, okay, I'll just go downstairs, have a drink, maybe take a couple of paracetamols, which I never do. I'll come back to bed, it'll be okay. But my body went into fatigue. I couldn't even get up the stairs.
Wow.
I know. And at this particular time, I'd got my son with me. So I tried to shout, but my voice went. I tried to mobile him, but my fingers went. It was just like my whole body was starting to close. But he heard something and came in. And so he just took one look at me and phoned 99. And within minutes, the ambulance were there. And, I had so many epiphany moments in the whole experience. Was such a gift. And they just said, you're having a heart attack. So, keep calm. And we need to really, really rush you to hospital.
Gosh.
I know. And I had 7 cardiac arrests. So, yeah.
7?
7 on the way there. Yeah, it was a fight for life. Yeah.
Gosh. And when you say it's a gift, what's the gift in that for you?
Oh, the gift of having an out-of-body experience, I think. And for me, I had to piece it together once I got into the intensive care unit. The gift of seeing how passionate our emergency services are for life. Like, they are so absorbed in saving you.
Wow.
Love. Do you know, it was another experience of like everything being presented from the surgeons that was quickly gathered together to waking up in an intensive care unit, wired up, burnt. Everywhere was burnt because when you have the resource, it kind of burns the edge of your skin. To a gentle touch from the cleaner at 4 a.m. to say, do you want a drink? Are you okay?
Oh my gosh.
The
I can see it in your face. I can see it in your eyes. Yeah.
Touch me, because when we're used to trauma, abuse, nastiness, conflict, brokenness of our human spirit, to go again into the other end of spirit in humanity, the spirit of God and love in the person is intense to experience. Because mostly in our world, it's not there. And for me, in my life experiences, it hasn't been there.
Yeah.
So to start to experience it was overwhelming. And then to piece together an out-of-body experience of knowing that I had the choice whether I lived or died, of knowing that, I was given that. You're not ready to come home. You're not ready to be here, of sensing parents saying, what, you're not meant to be here at this point in time. And then I was told that I didn't have much time, that once that light had gone, there's no coming back. Sorry.
It's okay.
And so I thought, okay, I can remember thinking this under a massive light, thinking, what do I do? And then I was told, you need to sing. You've got to use your voice and you've got to make a sound. And I can remember thinking, I can't breathe. How am I going to make a sound? But I let this sound out. It was the sound of an angelic. I don't know what came out of me. Angels came out of me. That's the only way I describe it. And the paramedics in the ambulance, which was going like the clappers to get to a heart specialist hospital, they were just like, we've never known anything like this. We've never heard a sound like it. I've never known anybody come out of a coma make that sound.
Wow. Wow, I love, do you know, my God, I'm
Sorry.
transfixed. No, please never apologize. I am transfixed. I'm staring at you thinking, oh my gosh, I need to ask another question here because it's like
Do.
I'm absolutely transfixed by seeing you on the screen, which I know our listeners aren't
Yeah,
seeing. But the light in your face and your eyes and around you as you speak about that is intensified. Like I'm transfixed by it. I love the fact that you were given an instruction to make
yeah,
a sound. It doesn't matter
yeah,
what. And I think this is, I'm tingling all over as I say this. I
yeah,
think speaking from my own experience, when I'm given something like that, I then question it. But what? But what? But what? Because it's got to be in my egoic mind, right, perfect, da da
yeah.
da, whatever, right? Rather than just follow the next step, follow the guidance, just do it. You can't get it wrong. There
No,
isn't such a thing as wrong. Right?
no, there's not.
There's
No.
just do it. And even in your the word I've got is distant state, right? Being driven to hospital, clearly borderline whether you die or live.
Yeah,
You heard this, just make a sound, and you did, and that kind of almost was your um ownership and um I'm going to go back. Like, okay, I'll do it.
yeah.
Is
Yes, it
that
was.
did I interpret that right?
Totally,
Okay.
totally interpreted spot on. It was that I made a decision to come back. And
Wow.
that sound carried me back. It carried me
Mm,
through the light and back to the earth plane and woke me up out of a coma because
gosh.
that's where I was. Yeah.
I think there's a whole podcast on that sound thing. I've got a couple of sound
Yeah.
healing buddies, and they say exactly
Mm.
the same thing. Sound is the vibration of the universe. It's we are
Yes.
sound. We are, and
Yeah.
that's exquisite. Which is why I think it is so important that we speak up, that we make a sound, that we share.
It
It's
is.
not saying this is the way. This is the way that worked for me, and if I share
Mhm.
that, like you're doing
Yes.
so beautifully then and I've only ever learned by sharing. We've got a guy that we owe probably a lot of our healing to, Dr. Wayne Dyer,
Yes.
that we both studied and listened, and I love people. I
I
love hearing when people like him
yes,
because
I love it.
he was profound, and he always used to say that just share, 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 share. Because if no one's listening, then the powers are share, share, share. And if people do listen and they learn from it, then they're able to take that and do something with it. But if you don't share, no one will.
Absolutely.
Where would we be if nobody shared their experiences and their thoughts and their voice and their love?
Well, that's how we learn through those shares of strength and hope and experience, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
how we connect
Well,
and
we hear
form
we're
a
not alone.
bond. We're not alone.
Exactly.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
connect and form a bond through
Yeah.
that sharing because
Yeah.
we just realize we're not alone. And I think, I wonder if others do. I know they do because I have wrestled so much with that ego and that voice that wants us to stay small and not share, that was
Yeah.
say, give us reasons not to share.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's in pushing through that, which it sounds like you have. So
Yeah.
then from 2018, as we learn to where we are present day, like how how did that move you forward as we kind of bring this beautiful story to somewhat seemingly, oh my gosh, I don't want it to come to an end, but bring us back round to how where you are now and how you're sharing with other people.
I think that was definitely an opening of my heart for sure.
Mm,
And a deeper spiritual experience, do you know,
yeah.
hugely brought me closer. It gave me so much in terms of working with leaders, working on purpose, seeing the passion for life and how the emergency services felt it,
Mm,
you know, understanding how sacred leadership is. And I think that we've kind of lost that, whether you're leading in your life, we're all leading somebody, we're all of influence, we are all change makers.
Yeah.
And then it's just bringing all that experience, bringing all that knowledge all together. And it was interesting because after that, after my heart attack, I was asked to pull off social media. So I'd built things up and I was out there, but I was asked to just pull off, to retreat back. And so again, it was like I followed it. But I think I had to experience that creation could come to me sat at my kitchen table. I had to experience synchronicity, divine orchestration. I had to see it pan out. I had to be able to receive it without thinking I was the one in control. I was the one that had got to go out there and do it and source it and solve it and be something. That power of divine love of greater than my humanness could ever be, would serve to me. And so it's a different way. I feel that I learned to co-create. I learned to receive. I learned to heal.
Wow.
I learned to look into our family dynamics and see the dysfunction and see 3 generations back of alcoholism and beyond, and how that had separated us, and and start to go into recovery as well as return. So there was a lot of synchronicities, a lot of change, and some pain. It's not. I have to look at the duality of life. Life is duality.
Definitely.
And also to receive channelings on how we become that best version of ourselves through divine intervention. And so it was, And so now I think I'm just coming back out. Now I think there's this take what you've learned, take what you've earned, and do good with it, but do it in a different way. Because every part of the way I've had to surrender, and the releasing of the ego, the releasing of an external fix on something, or an attachment to a label or anything, I've always had to let that crumble and learn some of that to get into the authentic me.
Love that.
That is a footprint. That's the difference between, that's your footprint, that's your legacy, the love of who you are in human form, and not having it contaminated and working towards that.
Oh my gosh. How beautiful to not have that contaminated, but just being the example of that love in action is enough to demonstrate to others that it's possible. And it's this human body that we have is just the instrument, isn't it? I love what you said, and you talked about return and recovery. The return home to who we truly are, the love, our hearts, our souls, is the recovery journey, isn't it?
It so is.
Yeah.
And it is still a journey for me. I'm still clearing that contamination, and going deeper into this. So
it's a continual journey, isn't it?
It's a continual journey of learning to love and learning to let go.
Nice.
Let go, let God in. Do you know?
By loving, absolutely. Continual journey to love. And it's the choosing the love that helps you let go, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Love that. Oh my gosh, Julie, how can people find out more about you, please?
Oh, bless you. Thank you. So you can email me at julie@juliannehart.com, or you can go onto the website, which is www.juliannehart.com.
And it's Anne with an E.
It's Anne with an E.
It's Heart, HART.
Yeah.
We will pop it in the show notes as well, so that people can take a look at your website. They will see your beautiful face. They'll see everything that you are about. And I want to thank you. Part of me wants to say sorry, but not sorry. You've gone through what you've gone through, because it's like, I say sorry, not sorry, because if you hadn't, you wouldn't be this gift to our world. You wouldn't be this voice being able to share. You wouldn't be the light that in a dark world. A lot of people are experiencing a dark world right now, and I have a saying that the proof is in the pudding, and I'd like to say and take this in the vein that it's meant. Thank you for being the pudding. Thank you for
You're
being the pudding.
welcome.
Yeah,
And I
just
want to say thank you to you as well, Vanessa, you know, for the beautiful soul that you are and for creating this special sacred space to
thank
share. It's
you.
been a real honor. So thank you.
Oh, I'm looking forward to our continued journey together
Yes, me
as we
too.
walk life
Yeah.
together, as we share more. And thank you for calling it a sacred space. I believe it is. I
It
think it's
is.
so
Yeah.
important. And this podcast is where everybody's stories are welcome. And thank you for sharing your beautiful heart and soul with us today. And thank you for
You're
sharing your
welcome.
voice. I very much appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you.
God bless, my lovely.
God bless.
The invitation is to take a few moments to reflect on what's resonated with you here today. Let us know what you find. Share this episode with those you love to practice your vulnerability and enable deeper connection with self, others, and the world around you. May you feel blessed and loved as you live your days with purpose and presence. Thank you for being here, and thank you for choosing you. I love you.